So glad you're with us on the Retirement Playbook. Brad Johansson with Ed Botello, WealthMax Financial Group. How are you today, my friend?
I'm well. How are you, Brad?
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. I want to get to something that we have to talk about. We're going to try and take you on an educational journey all the time, and this is probably the most significant that you have. What happens when you retire? You don't have a paycheck anymore. So where's your income coming from? We want to talk about income being the outcome. So if I'm going to change, and we kind of talk about this on shows a bunch, that there are plenty of accumulation advisors out there. And so while you're growing, while you're working, it's all good. The distribution phase is different. When you say income is the outcome, give me an idea what you mean by that.
Well, retirement really is income, right? It's not an age, it's not a number, it's not an asset value, right? A lot of people started to say, right, hey, if I hit $1 million, I'll be able to retire. Now it might be 2 million or 3 million. But it's really not a number. It's about how much income does your retirement playbook have designed for you to take to and through retirement. And so accumulation is, I always use the analogy of putting money into your piggy bank, and retirement is now, the game is different, Brad. I'm taking money from my piggy bank, and the game is completely entirely different.
Okay, so how do I create a plan? Because we used to have pensions and guaranteed. Now there's probably 12% of Americans that have pensions. And some people are lucky enough to be able to have something like that. That would be a guarantee. What else is a guaranteed income, and what should we be looking at?
Yeah, well, right now, today, there's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's crazy. There's going to be a huge transfer of wealth coming up. And so what that means is, though, when they first started working, when the baby boomers first started working, pensions were popular, right? More than 70% of employers offered pensions. Well, like you said, right, very low amount of companies are offering pensions. And so pensions were set it, forget it. Hey, as long as you live, you get paid. And then, hey, when you graduate and move on to heaven, your spouse will get compensated. And so now pensions are kind of depleting, right? And so this thing called the 401k and the 403b and the employer-sponsored plan has taken over. And now when those accounts hit zero, which is the biggest fear for retirees, your income stops. Right? And so you need to learn how to maximize your income while minimizing your taxes, right? But you also want to make sure that your portfolio lasts, and that's the biggest component.
Okay, so the guaranteed form then for some people is saying, okay, I don't have a pension, but I do have Social Security. And I'm allowed to start taking that at 62, so I guess that's what I'm going to do, and that's my guaranteed income. Look, we know that people all around the country, 1 out of every 4 households is using only Social Security as their guaranteed income, and it's not working.
It's not supposed to be something that you rely on for your full retirement income plan. Social Security is the foundation. So when we think about Social Security, pensions, rental income, these are assets that are going to pay you hopefully for the rest of your life, right? And so that you want to get enough baseline income to cover your baseline expenses. So when we're doing a retirement plan, guys, the number one component to any retirement plan is living expense. Right? And so I've retired people with $300,000. I have not been able to retire with someone with $4 million based on living expense. Your living expense is your most important component to a retirement plan. That's the biggest part of the equation. And so you want to really talk about 2 types of expenses: baseline expenses, what you need to live, and discretionary expenses. What type of lifestyle do you want to live, Brad, right, in retirement?
So it's necessities and then what I want. So I don't think a whole lot of us want to take a pay cut in retirement. Budgeting's never really fun as well, but I guess what you're saying now is if you're moving into retirement, creating this necessities and then lifestyle budget is probably a key thing.
It's so important, right? And people sometimes miss the hidden cost in your yearly expenses, right? I always talk about, what are you doing every 4th of July? Are you having a cookout? Birthdays, gifting, right? People start talking to me. They come in with a plan and say, hey, Ed, I only need $4,000 a a month to live, which is, $48,000. And so they are missing the birthdays, the vacationing, all the things, and then enter retirement. Now you want to start doing all the things that you didn't have time to do while working. And so, like I say, your go-go years, your first 10 years in retirement, you most likely will spend more, if not at least what you're spending as a regular employee.
So obviously, is overspending the biggest problem when we're talking about creating an income for retirement?
So spending planning really doesn't exist. People don't do it, right? As they enter retirement, people are not planning what they spend. And again, when we're talking about income, what is retirement, guys? It is income. Do I have enough assets that is going to provide me with income for 20, 30 years based on longevity in your family and your health? Obviously, everybody is different, right? But when it comes to Social Security, maximizing Social Security is really going to help your income plan because, again, that's your foundation in retirement. So when you come into the office to have a written, comprehensive financial plan, we're going to teach you how to maximize your income while never running out of money.
Okay. How about the underspending? I said overspending. Are there people who are saying that I'm so terrified that I'm going to run out of money that give me the underspending side of that?
Yeah, I have a lot of people who have passed their go-go years. They are now in their slow-go years. Maybe they're no-go years, right? But I won't tell them that, okay? That have accrued and accumulated so much money and they have a scarcity mindset that they can't spend all their money. They don't have enough energy to actually spend their money with activity. And so it's going to create a massive inheritance tax to the next generation. And so when you do enter retirement, you want to make sure, do you want to bounce your last paycheck? Do you want to leave a legacy to the next generation? These are things that your retirement plan need to align with, right? What is your legacy plan? What is your spending plan? Do you want to use all your assets? The playbook is going to help you accomplish what your goals and aspirations are.
So if income is my outcome and I'm walking in, how much lead time do I need? Give me an idea. You've talked before about a retirement red zone.
Yeah.
How much do I need to get in prep for? Because there are a lot of people who are saying this, you know what, I'm past my time. I've kicked the can down the road.
Yeah.
Now I got to go and I'm not sure whether I have enough money.
Yeah.
If there are people listening and saying I need to get prepped, what's a lead time to get ready for income as the outcome?
Yeah, so if you're a pre-retiree, 5 to 7 years prior to that awesome date when you retire is when your red zone begins. That's when you enter the red zone. That's when you want to start entering into, instead of an accumulation phase, maybe a protection and preservation phase, right? And we talked about the stock market. Obviously, that's not the main topic of today, but where we are here in the market, right, our assets were probably as high as they were going to be in November.
Well, and we felt like the market was just going to ride like this forever, right?
Yeah, so since 2009, right, we've only had 2 negative years in the last 15. Brad, it doesn't always happen like that, right? People are not understanding what red looks like when they look at their portfolios. They're starting to understand what volatility means entering 2025, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your income, especially your baseline to pay for your retirement is captured. You're going to, there's no risk to that. I always talk about the market being a long-term investment. Well, 5 to 7 years is not really a long-term investment, right? That's more midterm, maybe even short-term. So when you're thinking about market and income and how this all, corresponds with each other, 5 to 7 years is when you really want to start looking at protecting your income in retirement.
I guess for most of us who have been working all of our lives, we're putting the money into one bucket.
Yeah.
Because nothing beats the market in the long run.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that the runway's gotten shorter. You're talking about moving money into different buckets at this point for income to become the outcome.
Yeah, so when you are in retirement, you are taking distributions. And every time you take a distribution, you are selling your portfolio, right? When you are accumulating and you're adding to the piggy bank, you're adding, right? So when the market goes down and the market goes up, you're putting consistent money into that piggy bank, right? And so you actually like when the market goes down because you're buying low.
On sale.
Right? Buy low, sell high. Well, as you enter retirement and you are taking distributions, it's an entirely different game. Income, when you are taking income from your portfolio, you are selling positions in your portfolio. And so you want to really diversify. You want to go market dollars and non-market dollars. Well, why? Well, if you're in a blended mutual fund, right, and a lot of people are, target date funds
Sure.
are the most popular investment in employer-sponsored plans. When you're in a mutual fund, you are selling both equities and bond positions inside that mutual fund, whether the market's up or down. So if you do have blended mutual funds, you probably don't have the proper playbook to enter the income phase, because you don't want to sell equities when they're low. And so diversification, de-risking portfolios, 5 to 7 years, something you want to think about.
It's interesting, isn't it? The market is probably the only place where we go, man, things are really on sale and you don't buy.
Yeah.
And then it gets real high and you start buying when you don't have the sale. We've missed the idea of buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
This is the idea of diversifying and understanding what the income is. We need to get into some of those strategies. And maybe you're waking up every morning on this market and going, I don't know what I'm in for right now because I don't have a plan. This is what Ed is offering, a complimentary portfolio review, a written financial plan that will give you an idea how to make your retirement playbook work till the end. 844-837-3643. And let Ed take a look at it, a second opinion, even if you have an accumulation advisor who hasn't talked about some of this stuff. Maybe now's your time. 844-837-3643. Let's put together a retirement playbook that works for you. Be right back.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
So glad you're with us on the Retirement Playbook. Brad Johansson with Ed Botello, Wealth Max Financial Group. And we're talking a little bit about an income plan today, how income is the outcome and trying to figure out how to navigate the changes. That's kind of where we are, is that every day is a change and we're trying to figure out where the old rules are actually the rules that work today. Probably that rule was I had a number and I need a number. And we were told that the number you're supposed to have, I got to have $1 million to retire. And if I have $1 million, then I got a 4% rule. Take me through the 4% rule and whether or not it works right now.
Yeah, it's a rule of thumb. And it's the most popular distribution plan for those who don't have a plan. I always talk about go-go years, slow-go years, and your no-go years. When you retire, you're going to want to do the most that you possibly can, right? You're the healthiest, which is going to require what, Brad? It's going to require more money. And so the 4% rule is broken. Why? Because it's starting you off by, in year one, taking only 4% of your portfolio and adjusting for inflation. So actually in your slow-go years and in your no-go years, you're making more money than you are in your go-go years. And it doesn't make sense. It's a safe rule, but it's not a plan. It's something that an accumulation advisor will tell you to do because they want to keep more of your assets in their custodian, right? And manage more of your assets. They don't want you obviously to deplete, and nor do we. But you want an income plan. So when you come into the office for the comprehensive written retirement plan, you're going to notice that in your go-go years, we're providing you with the most amount of money, right? Or at least a steady income, because we know that, yes, the cost of living with inflation may go up, but your spending most likely is going to go down, Brad. You're not going to do in your 80s and 90s what you do in your early 60s and 70s.
Okay, so if my accumulation advisor is saying, well, the best way to go is, even if it's not a 4% rule, is a 60-40 rule, because the market rules.
Yeah.
That's what we said, right? Nothing's better than the market. Just leave it and forget it. We've got a plan for that.
Yeah.
Well, to leave it and forget it in 2025 is making people go, what? Is 60-40 still work as to where we're going in retirement?
So 60-40 is a diversification rule. It's a de-risk your portfolio idea, okay? Now, bonds are good for one thing, and that's controlling your anxiety, right? It's not good for your accumulation or your growth or even sometimes income, right? And so 60%, the 60 that are in the market, we know is going to guarantee do one thing, and that's go up and down, right? We just don't know when. We don't have that crystal ball. So when we are taking income in retirement, and I always talk about I am an income advisor, okay? That's what we do at WealthMax Financial. We are not looking to sell our equities during down markets, right? And we are sometimes in a very unique phase. In 2022, both the stock market and the bond market had a decline, right?
Yeah.
And so where do you go from there? You want to plan for all types of markets, right? And so that's what we really focus on.
There are people who are saying, okay, if I'm going to move my things, and I may be throwing this out at you because this has been a 4-letter word for a lot of people for a long time, and that's annuities.
Yeah.
As you move into annuities, they say, well, I'm not supposed to be in annuities. Somebody told me I'm not supposed to do this, and now I have to do. It has become a very popular word because it has created asset preservation. And my understanding from you is the annuities today are not the annuities even 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago. Why is that right now, and why does that may have to play as a part of your income plan in retirement?
Yeah, so an annuity is a contractual guarantee, right? And so that's what an annuity is, right? They're cousins.
It's your own personal pension.
Yeah, they're cousins. So a lot of people don't realize that you actually own an annuity. Social Security is an income benefit annuity. It's a form of an income benefit annuity, right? And your pension is an income benefit annuity. And I don't know too many people, Brad, that dislike their pension, right?
They're pretty fond of them.
Yeah, they really like them, right? And so we want to guarantee a large portion of your retirement, and we sometimes use annuities with that. But being a fiduciary advisor, that's only one part. That's only one, component of the playbook.
This is what you put together, and it may not be for everybody, but it's part of a personal written financial plan that maybe this is something that we can use.
Absolutely.
The idea is that it's for you, and yours may not be like anybody else's.
It's not.
So if you haven't explored any of these, maybe it's time for a retirement playbook. Maybe it's time for you to come in and get a written financial plan, a comprehensive plan that, as Ed said, is just a piece of the playbook. 844-837-3643 to come in and get your personal written financial plan. How much does it cost? It's free, because you may need a second opinion now, hearing things that you haven't heard before. 844-837-3643. Let's put together a playbook for you. We'll be right back.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination rain on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Glad you're with us on the Retirement Playbook. Brad Johansson, Ed Botello, Wealth Max Financial Group. And we're talking about income being the outcome. It's trying to figure out a plan as you enter the red zone of retirement. When people come in and they start talking about how retirement looks, how many of them are walking in who's saying, I know exactly what I'm spending per month, and I know exactly what I want? Isn't the question usually, have you figured out what your life looks like after this? Because let's be honest, we've done the same thing for a long time, and trying to figure out what retirement looks like can be hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, so not many people walk into the office with a plan.
With a clear understanding.
Okay. Yeah, with a plan or an understanding on how some of the vehicles that they own work or how they're taxed. And so obviously when you're taking income from your portfolio, that's going to create a taxable event, right? And so, you know, we talk about taxes a lot, right? That is a massive part of the play. And so we always talk about needs, right? What do you need to survive? And then what do you want to enjoy? A lot of times I talk about paychecks and playchecks, right? So your paychecks, don't you want those guaranteed, right? How much of your retirement income do you want guaranteed? And how much do you not want guaranteed, right? How much income do you want that's taxable? And how much of your income do you want to be non-taxable? Well, a majority of people today are in taxable retirement plans, and a majority of people today are in a non-guaranteed retirement plan like a 401k, like an IRA, like a TSP. All of the variables are great. They're fine when you are accumulating your assets, when you're growing, because you know that the market's going to go up long term. But when you're 7 to 5 years prior, right, when you're in that red zone, that's no longer long term. And so we now need to start transitioning from variables to guarantee.
All right, you're making me throw this up because I think this is really important. Ed has put together a tax calculator, and you need to have an understanding. If we're talking about how much you've deferred, how much you haven't paid taxes on right now, you probably need to know. So before we go today, I want you to go to this, maxtaxtest.com. You can scan the QR code and go to that as well. Ed has put this together so that it will give you an understanding of the amount of money that you have in qualified accounts and how much the government wants to take as you move through retirement, and the plans that may be there that you probably need to get to in this red zone of retirement to keep more money in your pocket. When we're dealing with this, is this the biggest speed bump that we have to creating an income that gives us an outcome that we'd like to have, because nobody in the accumulation phase has ever really talked to us about this?
Yeah, so when we have so much of our dollars in pre-tax accounts, if I need $1 from this account, I actually have to pay a 30 cents, right? I have to pay $1.30 or to get the dollar that I actually need. And so now I'm depleting my portfolio a little bit more than I thought I was going to, because in order for me to live the life that I need the income, right? And so income is great, but taxes are not, right? And so everybody wants their retirement to be tax-free, but no one has planned that. Why? Because you put your dollars in a 401k and 403b and an employer-sponsored plan because your CPA told you that was going to lower your tax bill. But remember, your CPA is hired to do your 2024 taxes, not your 2044 taxes.
Looking in the rear view instead of through the windshield.
Yeah, they're looking at what you made that year and trying to minimize your tax bill so you're happy. But what you don't realize is you're going to be really unhappy in your retirement years as you start to accrue and build this pre-tax retirement ticking time bomb. And then even if you leave it to the next generation, they're going to inherit it while they're making, you know, the most they ever have. And it's just a bad deal.
You put Wealth Max together because you say you want people to be able to create the maximum wealth that they have in retirement, and you've decided to make sure that you concentrate on the distribution end of all of this. How difficult is it? Because people find this very difficult to say, man, this sounds complicated for me to put together an income plan when I don't have a paycheck anymore. Can you give me an idea as people are walking in what it looks like to say, we've got a lot of puzzle pieces here? And I think for a lot of people, they're probably walking in because I think many of you will say this at home, I got a junk drawer. And maybe a lot of us have a financial junk drawer that we're dealing with, and they're throwing, hey, Ed, here's what I got. And it's a portfolio of stuff. And maybe they don't even have an understanding of what's in their portfolio or the hidden fees that go along with it that can help now as you go through this, create an income plan that's a lot better than what they have at this point now.
Yeah, so when people walk in, they're going to get everything drawn in crayon. I take great pride in simplifying using colors, and we're going to go right back to the whiteboard, right? And so we're going to simplify your retirement plan. We're going to actually provide you with a written retirement plan showing you what your tax bill is going to look like, what your income is going to look like, how much do we project you leaving to the next generation, if that's a goal you want to accomplish. If you want to bounce your last paycheck, well, let's do it, but let's do it with a plan. Let's make sure that you maximize your go-go years, but you don't leave anything behind when you graduate and go to heaven. So it's one of those things that without the plan, it's tough to really maximize. And that's how you started the segment there was, I created Wealth Max because I really take pride in trying to maximize everything. Finances, retirement, you need to maximize it, and you need a playbook.
Let's put together your playbook. I mean, because now is the time for you, especially if you have a longer red zone. There are many of you who are saying, you know what, I did it wrong. I may be out of time. It is never too late. We say this a bunch, that best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is today. Why don't you make your plan today to create a retirement playbook? Make the call, 844-837-3643, for a complimentary portfolio review and a written financial plan that is your retirement playbook. Time is precious. We appreciate you spending time with us here today. Now, let's spend a little time in the office putting your playbook together. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you right back here next week.